Good evening. It is April 12th and we are live. This is the HRP, the April HRPB meeting.
Call to order. Take the roll call and recording of absences.
Steve Pickett.
Here.
Chip Guthrie.
Here.
Bob Dorenzo.
Here.
Jamie Foreman. Nadine Heights. Here. Tricia Allison Mishler. You have a quorum.
Right. We get the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have the additions, deletions, reordering.
We do not.
Okay, can I get a motion for approval of the minutes? Margie. So moved. Seconds.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, staying? Yeah, let's. All right, can we have swearing in of staff and applicants?
Hold on.
William, can you turn on your video? We're swearing in staff and
I'm
applicants.
trying to find where it is.
We can get Tim later. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so we have proof of publication for 325 North Ocean Breeze and 509 Lake Avenue. See any withdrawals from article settlements?
No.
Nothing on the consent agenda, so we'll move on to public hearings and we need board disclosures.
I've had discussions with staff and several people about one issue.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I was disclosing that I had several conversations with staff and some members of the public about the issue of 509 Lake Avenue. But I have no interest, other interest.
Well, if you ever just, board members, if you're disclosing that you've had conversations or anything like that, just make sure that you confirm it if you can be impartial in the matter.
And I'm sure I can be impartial in the matter.
And nobody, no other disclosures, so we can move on to unfinished business. Item A.
So it seems like the agenda printed kind of funky. We don't have any unfinished business. This is all new business.
Is it?
Yeah. Awesome. So yes, we've got item A, HRPB project number 23-001043. Consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the existing structure at 509 Lake Avenue. This is in our downtown zoning district with a future land use designation of downtown mixed use. And this is a contributing resource in the Old Town National and Local Historic District. So here we've got our location. It's near the corner of South M Street and Lake. We'll go next slide. Awesome. So getting into the property history a little bit. So this is a concrete block structure with a stucco exterior finish and a gable roof. Our 1998 Historic Resources Survey and the National Register of Historic Places both surveyed this as a commercial craftsman influenced building constructed circa 1930. The 1998 surveyor did note that the building may have been used as a residence at one time. There's not significant evidence in the property file to back this up. In the recent survey update, the surveyors described the building as vernacular circa 1935 with the structure's original use as commercial. We'll go next slide. So these are a couple photos that we were able to find in our property file from the 90s. So based on what we were finding in our city property files, this was built circa 1939 as an office. While one property card in the 1940s does refer to it as a residence, all other documentation refers to the building solely as a commercial property. This was owned by a dentist until 1993, when the property was converted to the Junie Moon Consignment Shop, which you can see on that left photo right there. It changed uses a bunch of times in the 1990s, including some gift shops, a cafe, and then a restaurant. Most recently, it was used as a portion of the Havana Hideout. We'll go next slide. So in 2020, July of 2020, this was given a declaration of unsafe conditions by our building official. The full letter was included in the board packet. We'll go next slide. So this is the current site. That's an aerial view from our property appraiser, as well as a survey that was provided by the CRA. So you can see the building on there, as well as, you know, the large portions of vacant lot as well. We'll go next. So getting into our demolition requests. So demolitions in our historic districts are all subject to the standard decision-making criteria in section 23.5-4K4. And so that was described with staff analysis in your staff report, as well as this one has additional relevant criteria for issuing certificate of appropriateness for loss of historic character in redevelopment areas. So we also included that analysis. So starting off, like I said, the full analysis is in your staff report, but we'll go over the main points. So this is a contributing structure in the Old Town or Lake Lucerne National Historic District. Staff does believe that this would be unlikely to qualify as an individual landmark on the National Register. There are other better examples, in our opinion, of craftsman architecture in the city that are remaining. The design of the structure itself is not particularly notable and would not necessarily provide an exemplary opportunity to study local history or design as compared to other craftsman architecture in the city. And we'll go next slide. So while, you know, demolition of a historic structure is a loss to the city, staff analysis is that the building in its current state does not contribute to the historic character of the district. Therefore, the demolition would not constitute an irreparable loss as described in our ordinance. So the downtown master plan, which this site is a part of, establishes options for reuse and redevelopment of the property as part of a larger downtown redevelopment project. And so you all as the Hrpb, along with the city commission, will determine if any proposed new construction following a demolition is visually compatible with other historic structures and the downtown, you know, as a whole. So like we said, the structure was given a declaration of unsafe conditions, which is a consideration for demolition requests. And for that last consideration that we were talking about with loss of historic character, while the site does retain some elements of its historic character, including the wall finishes, the roof shape, and the overall configuration of the building, staff believes that the property retains little of its significance as a historical or architectural landmark in the city. Of further concern there is that renovation of this structure would be classified under our Florida Building Code as a substantial improvement because it would need you know, significant improvements to the structure to be brought up to code. So a substantial improvement under our Florida Building Code is any repair, reconstruction, rehabilitation, alteration, addition, or other improvement which by cost exceeds or equals 50% of the market value of the structure. So fire requirements that would be triggered by this would likely necessitate the removal of wooden character defining features on the property, especially on that roof, because of the zero lot line location, and also likely a change in the roofing material itself, which would further lessen the significance, you know, if they had to remove some of those character defining features. We'll go next. So staff recommends that you all carefully consider what we've presented in our staff report and review the demolition request to determine if they've demonstrated that the existing structure meets that criteria. Should you move to approve, we have drafted conditions of approval, which are on the next slide, including documentation of the existing structure, submitting an updated site form to the Florida Master Site File, and maintaining the property to make sure it meets our landscape regulations. We have our motions, yes. That is what we have as staff. I don't believe anyone from the CRA is here to speak.
No, Joan is
Oh,
here.
Joan is here,
Yeah.
great.
The CRA director, Joan Levin.
Do you wanna speak?
Hi, Joan Levin, Lakeward CRA. Okay. As you probably all know, this was part of the redevelopment effort that started back in 2018. It's taking us a little longer than we had hoped to bring a new redevelopment project in our downtown, but we are working with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. We finished a master plan. We're now working with Dover Cole and Associates from Miami, and we're working on an RIP. And we hope to bring that forward to both the CRA board and the commission within the next 2 months, and then we'll go from there.
So is this part of the L&M proposal?
Correct.
As far as if this does get demolished?
Yes.
That was pretty much my question too. This is necessary for the development plans to go ahead with the L&M project.
Correct.
All right, I guess before we go on, what questions for staff, from the board, and we'll open up to the public comment.
So please note that Jamie Foreman has arrived 6:13.
Is there any public comment?
Yes. We have plenty of public comment. So let me start with some of the ones that I received.
Sure, let's do the folks who are here, and then maybe we can do we can do.
That's it forward. Good evening, my name is Cliff Kohlmeyer. I'm at 503 First Avenue South. I'm within 400 feet, so I'm pretty in close proximity, and I know this building well because it used to be a thriving little Havana hideout where they had bike night, and boy, that place was always really busy, and jazz brunches and so forth. I don't know that those days will ever come back, and we have different strategic plans now for the city. But I have a really clear message tonight, real simple message. There should be a concurrent plan for new construction before demolition occurs. Because what has tended to happen in this district, in this assemblage, which includes L&M Street, is that buildings are taken away and then vacant lots sit for an extended period of time. And there could be uses for this building, including those that were proposed by Treasure Coast for the district, for this assemblage. When they said that a little beer garden might be nice in the future in that L&M Street assemblage. This demolition would take away those possibilities. So there really should be, according to our code, a concurrent plan for new construction before that occurs. Now, if this is a blight because of where it sits and because it hasn't been kept up, then I think it's incumbent on the CRA to keep it up and to make it look nice. And I think that to Mr. Guthrie's question as to whether this is necessary for the project, it absolutely is not necessary to demolish in order for that project to succeed successfully under the direction of the CRA and Dover Cole, which I commend them for bringing Dover Cole architects into this, because that is a good step forward. And of course, the Treasure Coast has done, in my opinion, a very good job in laying out some rules for the redevelopment there. And since I have another minute, I'm going to just chatter on for about a couple other points I wanted to make. The guidelines for decision-making criteria on the demolition include whether there is no feasible alternative to demolition. And it just seems to me, I don't see that the CRA has made a case that there is no alternative to demolition. Whether there's any definite plans for reconstruction, there aren't. This should go out to RFP first, because you might get a developer, an interested party that proposes something that includes this particular building. irreparable loss to the city. It could be considered an irreparable loss because it is a bungalow craftsman building that has some character. It's a little out of place perhaps with the Lucerne and with the kind of Del Rey idea that some people have for high-rise construction, but it is small town vernacular, and I think it should be kept. One final point, not to take these things into consideration seriously, could easily be considered to be an arbitrary and capricious decision if the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Maliga, owner of the Zoo Health Club located at 824 Lake Avenue. I stand to you tonight because I'm a business owner. I've been here for 13 years. Part of the downtown struggle is getting rid of the displaced and the blight. And unfortunately, yes, as Mr. Kohlmeyer said, this used to be somewhat of a thriving entity. It was on dives, drive-ins, and diners 10 years ago, and it was a great place. Unfortunately, through a change in ownership and a change in customers, unfortunately, it took a turn for the other way and started to now add to the problems in the downtown community. And I'm all about keeping architecture and history in our city, but I don't believe that this is a contributing business, a contributing factor to the downtown. I think that the vision that we have for the downtown investment, I no longer call it L&M because of the bad energy that was around those two words for a long time. We are saving the buildings that needed to be saved. We saved two great buildings, a fourplex and a small home right next to it. We've talked about saving the 501 building and keeping that as part of this new downtown vision. I don't think that the CRA or the city should be held accountable for the fact that every time we turn around, it's tagged, it's stickered. Literally a week before a street painting festival, it was repainted again. And you turn around and there's more stickers and more tagging. So it's a constant whack-a-mole right now. And I think that it is adding, unfortunately, a negative to the downtown community right now. So I come to you as a business owner to say, please, let's just clean up the downtown and move this project forward. We need new investment, we need new bodies, and we need to put a new vibe in the downtown community. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, John Fowles, 511 Lake Avenue. Tonight I represent the owner and the business immediately next to this building, which is my family, my wife. She just had a loss in her family, so she couldn't be here tonight. I'll just first start off with, please move forward with the demolition of this shed. I think we're giving it too much credit. Right now this houses like drug dealers and criminals and prostitutes. Like I said, our building is directly adjacent to this. This is people, needles and condoms in between the two buildings on a daily basis. This is, the drug dealer that broke in and tried to make it a storefront to sell drugs 2 months ago. This is just an ongoing death trap. I don't know. So next to we have a real estate office. We've been here 34 years in the city, and most of that is in this building next door. Us and all the other real estate companies in the city, we're constantly working, triple diligent to put the city's best face forward. And this building, the way it is right now, and the way it's been since the food truck moved away at Havana Hideout. Let's not remember the shed that's there as Havana Hideout is not the restaurant. The restaurant was a food truck parked in the back parking lot. This is something that has a toilet and ice chests, not even refrigerators, just things with ice to serve beer. It really, I think most people will agree it has no value. Like Commissioner Maliga said, the whack-a-mole, this is a regular, problem, the fence getting busted down and rebuilt and getting broken into, and graffiti. Our office and agents have talked to some business prospects looking to move into the city. And this property has come up as, you know, a concern that maybe they don't want to invest in our city. And it's like, you know, that's just not the. This is hurting us on so many fronts other than just an ugly building that has its problems. I didn't have anything prepared. I just have some bullet points. Thank you for putting up with that. So once again, please move forward on demolishing this. It's truly represents a health risk and a safety risk. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Wes Blackman. I think you know me. I'm at 241 Columbia Drive. I'm a certified urban planner. Tonight I'm here on my own recognizance as a concerned citizen. And I happened to, at one time, for 4 years, live at 509 First Avenue South, which is just a block away. And in fact, Mr. Kohlmeyer was my landlord. And I remember one of the businesses in this particular building being called the Lizard's Den. And I called it the Open Keg on Lake Avenue. So that's my memory of it. I think the staff did a good job in the staff report. I think there are some items in the code that I would like to point out that will give you more comfort in approving this demolition, which I'm definitely in favor of. I think it's detraction from our attractive downtown. It's right on our main street. There are thousands of impressions made each day as people pass by this building, either if you're a pedestrian or in a vehicle, and it just sends the wrong message. For whatever reasons, the building still exists in the condition it does today. So I'd like to point out, and the citation is rather difficult if you go through our historic preservation section of the code. But under C in the demolition criteria, it talks about the need for a concurrent application for new construction, and Mr. Kohlmeyer mentioned that. And it does say the Hrpb can waive the requirement upon good cause, showing that such requirement would be unduly harsh or result in an unreasonable economic hardship to the owner. And I will keep that in mind because the owner here is the CRA. And the CRA is a public agency. And being a public agency, it also is responsible to the taxpayers who are ultimately us. So it is a public entity that is being inconvenienced in this way, and by extension, the public. I'd also point out item G, which I didn't know even existed in the code, so I'm going to read it to you. Issuance of certificate if site has lost historic character in redevelopment areas. And the staff report addresses this quite thoroughly, I think. The Hrpb may grant a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, even though the designated landmark or property within the designated historic district has reasonable beneficial use. If the Hrpb determines that the property is no longer has significance as a historic, architectural, or archaeological landmark, or that the demolition of the designated property is required by a community redevelopment plan. And that's exactly what's being considered now, and has been for the past 5 years. Approved by the city commission, that's in the process, and the community redevelopment agency. It even names a CRA there. So, and I don't think it's any fault of the CRA itself that this has not moved forward. I think circumstances are more complicated than that, and they really cannot be held responsible for the delay. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that's all. I would just encourage you to take care of this business, approve the COA for demolition, so we can clear up some blight within our community redevelopment district. Thank you.
Cindy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I concur with both Wes Blackman and John Powell that this is a project that should move forward and this building should be demolished. I've heard from various people saying this is on the historical registry. That's not accurate. It is the district that is on the National Historic Registry. And so within that district, there are 46 contributing properties. This is just one of those contributing properties, but it's not specifically identified. There is one contributing property in that district that is identified on the National Registry, and that's the Old City Hall. But no other building in that district that's contributing is identified specifically on the registry. There are two other historic districts, College Park and Old Lucerne Historic Residential District, which also has the Gulfstream Hotel, which is individually listed, and also the Osborne School is individually listed. So this being said that it's on the historic registry it's really the district that's there. And this is just one building within that district. And as staff has said, it really has lost its historical characteristics. There are much finer examples of craftsman style throughout the city. We have a lot of historic homes. And I concur with what Wes Backman said about the code and your option to issue a COA based on its having lost its historical characteristics. And one other item, just for amusement value, there was a gentleman who wanted to open a bakery in that facility, and he wanted the nearby bakery to give him free bread for him to sell. And he's also the gentleman that was practicing naked yoga in our cultural plaza. So we could have a naked yoga bakery, but I don't think that really adds to our city and the things that we would like to have in our city. So I encourage you to approve this and issue a COA. Thank you.
All over.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Robert, 127 South K Street. And I just put some thoughts together, just as your average citizen here. I've been thinking a lot about this property, going by it constantly. And I did have to write it down. So as I thought about what I wanted to say about 509 Lake Avenue, I decided to share what I often say to myself when I pass by it, which is almost daily. How long must we stare at this and why? What good is this doing for any of us? Now, I live in a historically contributing bungalow, and I have every deed and title on it back to 1913, and I really do cherish learning about preserving what I can of its history. But allowing 509 to remain in this state does not serve in preserving its contributing history, it does the opposite. We are erasing, or at the very least diminishing, its true history and the spirit of that history as it gains a new one that I don't think anyone intended. In many people's minds, walking just down the street or anybody who comes by year after year, the structure's only history now is that it's the broken down eyesore that has always been there and serves as proof to the naysayers that Lake Worth Beach shall always remain Lake Worthless. And I hate saying this, but we're doing no favors to the memory of the structure's significance or the predecessors of our city in the foul state that it's in. Its physical utility is long gone. It's been slated as being unsafe for ages now. Its value in every sense of the word has run its course. Now, keeping it in its same state until an RFP comes to fruition would not only bring on more squalor, it's building resentment and frustration over something that should be admired and remembered as an integral part of our story. We've shamed its history long enough. I feel we owe it to ourselves, to our past, and to the new generations who are moving here to provide decent, clear city spaces that will help envision our future, not stifle the hope for one. Perhaps the way to honor this building might be, whatever structure does end up in its space, have as part of the agreement, there must be an historic plaque on its wall, and maybe within its threshold, install an original photo with the history of the structure that stood before it. As a historic board, I know you understand better than I ever will that we cannot hang on to every rotting timber. But in this case, we can steer its history and mend some of the wounds we carry now. Please approve the COA, right a bit of wrong, and continue in your service in giving our historic city a fighting chance. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other public comment here in the audience?
Good evening, Tom Convoy, 30 South End Street, business owner. Honorable board, you guys hold the integrity of our city here in and around historic preservation. 5 years ago, I was looking at the property at 30 South M Street for my business. And many people said, hey, the historic board is going to make you do all these crazy things. Don't buy there. I said to myself, I love historic properties. I can work with you guys. If it means that I need to make sure that my facade looks good, I'm down. I spoke with the CRA director before buying the property. And then I've watched this whole L&M thing progress. We were told that those buildings would be brought before you guys before they were demolished, yet they were condemned and demolished. They didn't even wait until the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council's report was done before voting to demolish them. I was told that those buildings were so bad because these are the other properties, not the one that's talked about today, that we couldn't enter because they were unsafe because there's so much rotting wood. When they were torn down, I didn't see barely any rotting wood in there. Okay. So the city has been out to just demolish all the historic properties that are right across from my business. They've done a very good job. And there's one left that's here. I encourage you guys to hold the line and don't let them demolish this until there is a plan in place, which is what they should be doing. I guess there's some exceptions you can take if you want to, and that's up to you. The beer garden was talked about in the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and we know that Havana Hideout was the beer garden style for Lake Worth Beach. It's not a German beer garden, but it was Lake Worth Beach's version of a beer garden. And I personally spent plenty of evenings there having a great time. I know that it's one of the things that, from what I understand, Guy Ferrari took note on our city, and that's where he started moving here and such. So there is value to this property. It does have some historic value, and you can't get that back once it's demolished. Please hold the line here. Don't let it be demolished until we have a plan in place.
Good evening, Greg Richter, 1202 South Palmway. I'm here to speak for tear this building down. It needs to go. Gentleman just mentioned about the previous buildings. The city at one time, the CRA offered to give those three of those houses away. I personally went and found lots for those houses, tried to bring investors into those houses, and the fear was there was rotting wood in there. And the fact of the matter is, one particular mover we even talked to said, we don't want to touch it. That we're afraid it's just not going to stay, not going to be able to move that structure. So it's just time to move on. This is a delay tactic to keep things from happening in the project in that area, and time to stop the delaying and get going. Thank you.
Sorry, I would attempt to hit this. My name is Richard Stowe, at 414 North Federal Highway. I did want to comment, you've heard a string of nattering nabobs of negativity, who are kind of bringing the city down. I want to offer you a positive vision. The solution is not to use grant money to demolish the structure, but rather to use grant money or penny sales tax monies to undertake energy efficiency improvement restoration of the, what could be 93-year-old building. Craftsman bungalow. The building footprint, 10-foot setback and 25-foot lot comprise less than 13% of the parcel. The second thing is site new development in that remaining 87% vacant area, or vacant area. The vacant area is 0.16 acres. That's larger than a standard 50 by 135 residential lot. It is a Craftsman bungalow, but it's unusual in that it is like got a stucco exterior. The CRA is now like had 4 applications in which they have not provided a concurrent plan. There is, and during this period and before actually the CRA bought it, there's been demolition by neglect of the structure. And that's a prohibited activity in our historic preservation law. A code case was opened under the former owner and continued under the CRA. And now, as of let's see, February 6th, 2023, in total $209,552.29. I live next to a what could have been a condemned structure, was in terrible shape, 410 North Federal Highway, and I never thought it could be a beautiful space. With the work of the historic preservation officer, the bank that had foreclosed on it, and then a speculator who did restoration, and the current owner, the 2 buildings there are really lovely. And I think you would be surprised, many of the naysayers in this room who support demolition would be surprised how nice this Craftsman bungalow could look if restored, and serve as a model for energy efficiency improvements. The roof looks terrible, but we could do a cool roof that is outlined in our historic preservation documents. That is the desirable way to go. I do want to say that how much time do I have? You're over by 41 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time, and I encourage you to protect our historic resources and deny CRAs. Unwarranted application.
Any further comments from the audience? We have written comments.
I do. So the first is going to be from Tom Osterholt, living at 2111 Notre Dame. And he strongly urges the demolition of 509 Lake Avenue. This small dilapidated structure is an eyesore for the downtown area. Until this obsolete building is demolished, no developer would even consider building on this lot to put this empty lot back to its highest and best use. Please support the CRA decision to demolish this structure without the normal complaining and backbiting I typically see for political advance. Next would be Erin Allen of 208 South Lakeside Drive. She encourages us to approve the COA that will allow this dilapidated structure to be torn down. Any historical significance it ever had has long been removed and or ruined. I went down to walk around to see See it close up this week, and the front of it is defaced with graffiti stickers, dead landscape, and the structure itself is decaying. This building is beyond an eyesore that is directly in the downtown thoroughfare that everyone driving through town sees. Allowing it to remain makes visitors think we don't care about our downtown or take pride in the town. Knowing the history of this property, I think the CRA has had to jump through hoops that were unnecessary. It's time to tear this down and allow redevelopment of this area of the city. Amy Ferreter, 30 South J Street. Please approve the COA that will allow this dilapidated and dangerous structure at 509 Lake Avenue to be torn down. The CRA has been unnecessarily stalled in getting this important work done. It's time to allow them to redevelop L&M and bring life to the struggling area in the heart of our downtown. Martha Wright. I'm writing to you, 616 South End Street. I'm writing to you about the matter coming before you this evening for the approval of the certificate of appropriateness that will allow 509 Lake Avenue to be demolished. I hope that there is no issue in just granting this unanimously. This building on the main avenue of our city illustrates the blight throughout our city. And there it is for all to see as they pass through the town on their way to the beach. It's embarrassing. And we think it was purchased by the CRA in an effort to rehabilitate the downtown core area as part of a bigger plan, and now they are being penalized by the city. It's counterproductive and in her opinion, does not show good faith. Let's get this approved tonight so the CRA can go about making our town something we can be proud of to show off to out-of-towners and residents. Susie Madison of 401 South Lakeside Drive. Please approve the COA for this derelict property right smack dab in the middle of downtown. This is such an embarrassment to the city. This needs to be demolished because of safety issues. There is no historical value to this property. Let's get it down and let the vision for this downtown area be fulfilled. Janet Serrano, 413 North L Street. Please do not delay the demolition of 509 Lake Avenue. There is no visible architectural historical value to the building, and it is an eyesore to our otherwise attractive business district. Since it has been vacant for a number of years, its interior is doubtless in very bad shape. Vacant land in the downtown area is almost non-existent. So it would be prudent to tear down this property and make way for business that will add to our town's vitality. Andrew Carey, 1022 North K Street. He wanted to read his comment on Zoom, but I don't recall seeing anyone else. So while you look, I'll continue. We have Beverly Young, 1130 North Walkie Road. Why in the world would anyone want to preserve this eyesore? Tear it down and do something that will enhance our town, not make it look like a shanty town. Sylvia Rotella, 302 North B Street. She supports the demolition of a derelict building located at 509 Lake Ave. And David Sims, 715 North L Street. The structure at 509 Lake Avenue was built in the 1930s, and it is a contributing historic structure in the downtown historic district. It should be preserved, not demolished. The city could use federal energy efficiency improvement grants and revenue from the penny sales tax increase to replace doors, windows, and the roof with new energy efficient parts, reducing the cost of refurbishment. Giovanna Dominguez Timor, 301 8th Avenue North, is in support of halting any plans for the demolition of this building. Since she selected the city as a retirement home, she's discovered a palpable disconnect between the citizenry, much of which includes talented professionals with all manner of expertise, valuable to the creation of a vibrant community which cares about its history in conjunction with the living environment and the involvement and pressure exerted by staff upon allegedly citizen-powered boards that are tasked with personally examining issues which come before them. It does not require a great deal of examination to witness how staff and not the boards and community-based organizations are impacting the trajectory of the city it is taking toward what goes and what stays, what is worth saving and what is not, what is acceptable and what is not. When there is a clear call for compromise or discretion, and when adherence to written standards must stand, when any deviation is justified for the sake of the city and on behalf of the quality of the life of its residents deserve. The 646 square foot contributing historic building at 509 takes up little space and has so much potential. It can be transformed for many purposes, many of which will include the enhancement of tourism for this small city, which is clearly under siege by development that undermines both the natural habitat and historical structures surrounding it. We must consider that there are materials used in older buildings that can no longer be found, that there are architectural uniquenesses and structural integrity inside places that have survived weather, and time. These buildings should be carefully examined by each individual responsible for rendering a decision as a group. All over the world, historical structures are incorporated, even in part, with new structures to enhance or repurpose the space instead of bulldozing it to the ground as if it were rubbish without hope of renewal. This is why we visit Europe and other older places on Earth. We connect with their value for history, for the beauty of human creativity along with the natural world. There is much that can be done with the structure that does not include an end. I urge each of you to reflect and make time to examine carefully what your decision will be regarding this building. Being part of a board can be a force for good that can bear good fruit. It must include personal investment of time and independence in both thought and action. Staff recommendations or other forces should bear no weight in your decision. Almost there. I have Suki DeJong of 2381 Sunset Avenue, number 110. I'm against the demo of 509 Lake Avenue, especially since there is no plan in place for new construction as code requires. We really need to preserve any historical buildings in the downtown area, no matter how many similar buildings we have in other parts of the city. Demolition of the modest bungalow craftsman, a significant historic resource built during the Great Depression, would result in an irreparable loss to the city. This resource, one of 2 residential buildings on Lake Ave, lies in the historic Old Town Commercial District and Old Town Local Historic District. New construction envisioned in the downtown master plan ill-fitting and lacks the authenticity of the craftsman bungalow. A bungalow craftsman. I urge the CRA to do the right thing and restore rather than demolish. I have John McGrath, 911 North Federal Highway. Your duty as members of the board is to preserve the historic architecture of our unique city. I find it disturbing how often and easy it has become for this board to vote in favor of demolitions when there are alternatives to consider. You have an opportunity tonight to save a structure unique to our city. This building located at 509 Lake Ave is not only of historic importance, its location in the heart of downtown is significant as it may help to define any potential future development in our downtown. City staff and this board will be doing a great disservice to the city by approving the structure's demolition. I hope the members of the board realize that once they have given approval to demolish all of our historic structures, there will no longer be need for your board or your service. There will be no longer be historic structures left to preserve. Ginny Powell, 224 North Palmway. Dear Historic Resources Preservation Board members, I do not think it is appropriate or legal to demolish any contributing structure without having a detailed plan in place to replace the structure being demolished, in this case 5019 Lake Avenue. I recommend you vote no on this item unless and until there is an approved plan in place. My understanding is that having an approved plan is still down the road a bit, so it's premature to move forward with proposed demolition at this time. Once the revised RFP has been finalized, proposals have been submitted and reviewed, a proposal is awarded, and a contract has been signed, it is time to consider demolition. No resident of Lake Worth Beach living in a historic district would be allowed to do work on their property without having a plan in place on the front end. The same should apply in this case. Anthony Segrich, 601 South Palm Way. Thank you for taking the time to consider the comments in the demolition of 509. The city of Lake Worth Beach has many wonderful buildings of architectural significance and even some of its historical significance. I would urge the board not to confuse the age of a structure with the historical significance or architectural value. Age is only one factor to be considered. Although this building is old, is not associated with any historical figures or events. It is not architecturally unique, impactful, or significant in any way. It is sadly a small derelict box of a building. Please allow for the demolition of this structure. I think that's all we have.
You want to go back on that? What was one that you agreed was looking for? Did it get read?
That was someone who requested that they be able to speak on Zoom. So they had no comment because they wanted to make their comments in person or via Zoom, and they have not. They received a link when you go onto through the portal, you sign on, you say either you want staff to read the comment, or if you check the box that you want to read your comment yourself, you receive a link to join Zoom. And you would be able to at that time, but we have that person has not joined the meeting.
If you didn't leave a comment.
And there's no comment, because he wanted to make the comments himself, whatever they may be.
Right, so that's close.
The downtown merchants sent in a petition.
Right, so we have the downtown merchants and, this, I reached out to Michaela Clanton, I believe, who is the person who requested, that this be entered. It was simply a thing, but I believe we needed someone to present this or speak on their behalf.
Yeah. If you'd like to, if you'd like to make a motion to receive and file, we received this and we can pass this out. It's a local.
Signed by 9 business owners.
We have a motion to,
There was also a statement put in by the Sierra Club Waxahachie group, conservation committee.
So we reached out to that particular group, and unfortunately, the letter from that group was not signed. And there was no authorization on behalf of that organization to speak on behalf of that organization for this issue. So we reached out to the person who submitted that information to us and asked them to submit a public comment instead of a letter from the group, or to provide documentation that they had authorization to provide that letter. It was just signed. It was just a Word document signed by the group with no name or associated. So we can't accept that. So it has to be from a person or from a person who's authorized to represent that group.
so you didn't receive response from us. So,
No, we did not.
all right, so we have a motion to accept the petition.
Make a motion to accept it.
Petition for the downtown business owners.
And make fun of the record.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, we have a motion in a second to accept the petition to the record. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Unanimous for acceptance.
I read the statement of the Sierra Club. I serve on the conservation committee.
No, I believe you made a public comment, but you can't represent them if you're, unless you're authorized.
Yeah, you have to have some type of authorization on behalf of the group to speak on their behalf. So, and this is a standard procedure. We apply it consistently. It doesn't matter. You have to say, either have to have a letter or provide minutes of some kind that said that they considered the issue and they made a determination that they're going to support or not support, or you have to be, it's very specific. And like I said, the letter that we received wasn't signed by anybody. It just said from the group. So.
Was it shared with the board?
No.
Thank you. All right, so petition that closes public comment. Anybody from the board have questions for the representative of the CRA or for staff?
I do have a question for the staff, and this is really, I think, something important that we have to consider, that according to the Florida Building Code, this property would exceed 50% of the market value if it were reconstructed or repaired, which then means that in order to bring it into compliance, you're going to have to remove much of the wooden character defining these historic features and change the roofing materials. So for me, that's a real big issue that, I mean, nobody's done it yet. And I just wanted to know, have we had costs on that as far as, we know?
No,
that
we
it's
haven't
50%?
cost, well, yeah, because this building has no mechanical systems. It has no plumbing, it has no electrical systems. It needs a new roof. it needs windows, it needs doors.
So we know for sure it's
We
gonna
haven't
exceed
had a-
50% of the
Right,
value.
we haven't had it, we don't have an interior structure of the walls analysis, I don't think we did. But there may also be, if there's concrete spalding, which there likely is, just in a building of its age. Where if it has a leaking roof or it has open to moisture, there may be, that particular issue that would require remediation. So, and remember, it's 50% of the value of the structure, not of the land value. So honestly, you put an AC system and some electrical work in there, you probably exceeded the value of what is functionally CVS block is what is remaining left. Once all those other things are retained. And I just want to point out that under that section G, so we determined that it met subsection A, which was the general criteria, and subsection G. So it can just meet G, which G is that if it's an area in redevelopment, it's identified as part of a master plan, and you make the determination that it's lost its significance, you can support a COA just on G itself without the criteria in A or C. So.
What I was getting by reading, through this is that essentially in order to so-called save the building, it would be a reconstruction. There'd be very little of the original building left.
It would be functionally reconstructed and it would be modified in such a way that probably a lot of the eaves on the zero lot line would either have to be removed, or would have to be, they could not be wood.
Right.
And so the eaves are wood. It wouldn't meet current fire code requirements.
I have a question for Ms. Oliva. I realize we don't have to have a plan necessarily according to code, but is there some sort of an interim plan on what the CRA thinks they might want to do with the property? As it's a vacant lot, is there some sort of way that can be sort of, I don't know, if it can be converted into like public area or made to be some sort of an amenity area space or whatever like that to contribute to the downtown space while you were going through the RFP process and bring the people in?
Our attorney was pretty clear, because the building is condemned, that they didn't want us to have the liability of having the building remaining there, especially since it's broken into on a regular basis. And it was actually code that asked us to put up the fence because people were cutting through. But if the city is willing to work with us, then, potentially it could be some kind of open space temporary while we're working on the RFP.
Right, and that's what I meant, if the building were to be demolished,
Yeah.
if the space could be a contributing space for the downtown and provide some sort of amenity while we're working through the rest of the process.
Yes.
Question real quick, just real quick, was there any like nuisance abatement type issues with this property? I'm sorry if I was late to discuss this, but typically, in the past, we've dealt with some of these different locations where we had that.
Yeah, there has been a long time code case and the CRA purchased the property with a code case on it. So basically, one of the resolutions to the code case is to remove the structure because of the condition that it's in.
This is one of the, cases, looking at this and going over our packet, that, it was a little difficult for me to go, because I see a little bit on both sides. It is an old building, but the thing is if I'm trying to envision going up and down Lake Avenue or Lucerne, anything in our main downtown area, any other structure that comes close to the dilapidated look of this and what it does for the city, and thinking, okay, what could possibly be done with it to make it look any better? And I cannot think of what they would be able to do with that property. I visited the Havana Hideaway often. It was kind of a funky sort of a Key West, toes in the sand type of thing, and it was kind of cool back then. But even then, the building was not anything you'd ever want to walk into. And it was dank and it was damp and it was moldy on the inside, but that's why everybody sat on the picnic tables outside. It appears to me that the back portion of the property looks like it's an addition. There's a differentiation between it and the front part of the building. So it's possible that even more of the structure is not significant, the flat roof looking at. And yes, it's been damaged and vandalized and the pieces on top. I cannot think of anything that would work well to go in this particular piece of property that could be a big part of. And I don't know, we have not received nobody's been stepping up to the plate saying that they can really take this. The property itself, I believe it's 3 small lots. Is very valuable to the city, to the downtown, to the projected project that's going to take up the area behind it. And is going to increase value of properties all the way around, including Mr. Kohlmeyer's and Mr. Conboy's, and many, for several blocks, any around there, that when this project is complete and new and gives a very positive image of Lake Worth. I can't see any reason to stop this. We're given clear ability and authorization because of the fact that there is very little historic significance in the architectural or archaeological significance of this building. Block structure is kind of square. It would require a lot of work to get it to be usable in any fashion. And even the people who want to demolish it say they don't want to demolish it until we have a plan. Okay, well, so we bring back a plan, we bring back and say, okay, let's demolish it now. We're going to be right back to the same spot again. In the meantime, between now and then, in the 2 years, 6 months, 3 years, the way the city moves, it could be a while. We have to look at this. The downtown has to look at this. Our patrons, the people that have been coming to Street Painting Festival for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years anyway, have had to look at this. And I mean, it's unusable. It has not been used. Like I said, I was more on the fence on this when I first started looking at it. Somebody had told me that this particular building was on the National Historic Register. Okay, that was going to play very, very heavy in my decision, because even if it is just a piece of junk property or a building itself, when you have something on the National Historic Register, that is very significant. However, I learned later on that the National Historic designation is to the downtown district, the historic district of the downtown. This happens to be a contributing property, like many more contributing properties. I wish somebody would show me any property that looks anywhere close to this up and down that, is relished or is celebrated for its architecture. And I can't think of one. So I mean, I'm going to be voting to allow for the demolition. I would like to see the CRA or the city or in conjunction do something nice with it. Maybe a little sculpture garden or something just to be done between now and when there's a plan to kind of beautify the area and make it a little bit usable. Something has to be maintained a little bit, but that'd be great. That's my comment. Thank you.
Any other questions? I agree with having some sort of a plan in place as far as just creating some sort of amenity space there and improving the property. I think that because it is so valuable, if we can, clear up the safety issues and that kind of thing by the demolition and get rid of those hazards, and it's an open space for the downtown. I think it could offer some opportunities for some amenity space downtown. So I'd like to see that. I don't know if we can have that as conditional approval to say that we'd like the CRA staff to work on how that space can be utilized by the downtown for the public in the interim time between when it's redeveloped, but I'd like to see that.
Sure, there's all kinds of, ways to use temporary spaces now, and, we can work with Joan, the city, and the CRA to come up with, potentially like a interim pocket park type use. Looking at, of course, the safety issues at the site and, the feasibility of that. But at least, there's a requirement if it's demolished that it's going to be at least sodded. all the remaining structures are gonna, all the, the rest of the lot, like the driveways or the sidewalks and other things will be removed. So it'll be, and then it'll be sodded or, we've been also talking to John possibly about using some native ground cover as well. So there's some opportunities there for sure.
Hopefully we can do much better than just sodding it down. Hopefully we can really do something kind of, it is a large enough area, as we're down there, like you said, possibly maybe a little flavor, even if it's temporary, but if we put in a couple little things for mothers to bring the kids down or something, that they could be moved later on to a different park that can be used as well, but I'd like to see something the CRA makes really nice little parks, over the years, so maybe we could do something on a quick temporary basis,
Yeah. No, I realize there's also some issues with creating spaces that may attract other visitors as well. So we have to tread lightly on that, but I would like to see that some sort of a public space so that it can be used when, when there are festivals or there's some sort of a gathering or whatever, it's that space available to hold something. So. That's it. All right, so we have a motion.
I'd like to offer a motion to approve HLPD number 223-0010043. Consideration for the demolition of 509 Fifth Avenue with the conditions, staff recommended conditions and the staff, and the board recommended condition.
I would say something like maybe that the CRA should work with city staff to identify potential temporary or interim uses as feasible. Because Joan's gonna have to talk to we have to talk to the lawyers and we have to talk to, we've got, the site's got to get cleaned up and it's got to get some type of ground cover on it. And then looking at then what's next for how it can be used and programmed.
Should incorporate the language in G, the section about the city, pursuant to a plan from the CRA and the city. And
so the G doesn't need to be incorporated because G is referring to the downtown redevelopment plan that was just basically endorsed by the city commission and then the process we went through. So it really is just about allowing for an interim use until the site can be redeveloped.
And my motion is based upon conflict substantial evidence, staff report, pursuant to the city of Lakewood Beach Land Development Regulations and historic preservation requirements.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Unanimous vote for demolition.
I'd like to thank everybody who reached out, to discuss this and contributed and actually showed up tonight for your comments. Well received. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to new business B.
So we've got new business item B, Hrpb project number 23-001034. This is consideration of a COA for partial demolition and renovation of the existing structure at 325 North Ocean Breeze, removing a 1994 addition. This is in our single family residential zoning district and is a non-contributing property in the Old Lucerne National and Local District. So we'll go next. So there's our location map. Like I said, we're on Ocean Breeze, just south of 4th Avenue North. We'll go next. So this is our primary structure. This structure was built circa 1935 as a wood frame minimal traditional structure. A rear porch addition was built in 1940 and a shed was added to the property in 1993. The attached garage was converted to living space sometime prior to 1994. We did not have good permit documentation of that. But in 1994, an addition was built on the southeast part of the building to create a new master bedroom and bathroom, and the original wood siding was covered with vinyl. So we'll go next. So the property owner is proposing to demolish that 1994 addition to the house. Replace 3 windows that are affected by that demolition and replace the existing vinyl siding with wood siding. And if any historic wood siding does remain underneath that vinyl, to repair that if feasible. So these are elevation drawings. On the top is their drawing of the current structure, and the bottom is what it would look like with that removal of the addition. So with the exception of the garage, which is still, you know, a converted space, the removal of that addition would return the structure to its historic appearance as viewed from the street, which is our primary concern with these non-contributing structures. So this is the elevations from the south side. You can see 2 of those windows that would be proposed once the addition is off of there. And we'll go next slide. And this is just our site plan review. So as always, staff reviewed the basic criteria and full responses were in your staff report. Again, this is a non-contributing structure in a national and local historic district, unlikely to qualify as an individual resource on the National Register. Also really important to your decision-making is that the addition itself is not yet old enough to have historic significance in its own right. The historic significance lies with that 1935 and even that 1940 part of the structure. An addition from 1994 does not yet have the age to convey significance. So removing a non-historic addition visible from the street would actually support the historic character of this structure and of the district as a whole.
Now, if memory serves me right, that 1994 addition encroached on the additional building lot that sits on a double lot, correct?
Yep, so this is on a double lot. That addition did encroach onto it. Removing the addition, I think they said it would be like a 4.8 foot setback now.
Okay, so you're almost at the 5 foot.
Almost, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they are not proposing to split the lots at this point. But yes, this would remove that encroachment from the.
Well, it's a wise move. Prior, I think 2 owners back were looking to do that also.
We discussed that with them, that if they were intending to split the lot, now would be the time to tell us.
Well, if you only have
So that they
1.8,
could, that they could come forward with a waiver and then split the lot.
Right,
But they seem to want to hang on to it for now, if they want to just split it.
but it's good to remove.
I'm the owner, so I'd be happy to.
Well, when you.
We'll just finish up the staff
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
presentation and we'll have you come and give your.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, just really quick finishing it up. We do recommend approval with conditions. For all the reasons we already talked about, the proposed windows and the wood siding are totally appropriate for the architectural style. They're compatible with the existing windows. We've got our conditions there on the slide for you to look at, and we've got our property owner here as well.
If you'd like to come up and speak.
Yeah, take the extra 4 inches.
Hello, Tina Shipman, at 319 North Ocean Place, and I'm a homeowner of all 3 properties, actually.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, I know you.
So basically what we're trying to do is to take off this addition that I think looks hideous from the street anyway. And pretty much bring the house back to the original footprint of 1935. It's been sitting empty, vacant for the past 10 years with absolutely no maintenance taken care of it. I know it needs a new roof and new windows and doors. What we're gonna find when we are able to take the vinyl siding off, I have absolutely no idea. Termites, rot, it does have has some good bones, I've been told, got the Miami-Dade pine wood floors. What else is in there? I have no idea until we start opening things up. So, so this is really what I would like to do. I want to see if I potentially can separate the lots. But that is, you know, I won't really know until I can find out what we're happening with the house.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we were saying basically, if you have a 4'8" setback, you need a 5 foot setback.
right.
I would.
You need a waiver in order for the.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, even if you wanted to add the waiver, you could not because it was not advertised. So This is when we talked to the applicant, she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. We suggested at that time to go ahead and apply for the waiver if she wanted to separate the lots to have the option. She still wasn't sure, so she can come back and apply for the waiver later. It's just that it's just another, you know, once she figures out what's underneath and what her plan is, then she can come back if she decides she wants to split the lots to the original
If she
subdivision.
were to go for a waiver, that's a development order, does that only last a year? The waiver?
So the waivers would last until she addressed the lot. She would have to we would tie it to an address application. So it's to a building permit unless a building permit is not required for the development order, and then we tie it to a subsequent activity. So like it may not be a building permit, it may be a landscape plan for some DOs. It may be a business license application, like for uses. So for example, use might occupy a building, they don't need to do improvements to the building, so they don't need a permit.
Right.
So the business license would be the vesting action.
The waiver does not expire.
No,
And
but
it would expire, she never got an address and actually went forward to separate the lots with the property appraiser. So
Despite separating them or not, if she came back off the center line 5 feet. She doesn't do it at all, but the next owner 15 years, well, whatever, 10 years from now, whatever. She's already met with a setback.
Right, so we would want her to only really do this if she was, right now she's complies, right? Because she
Right.
basically, her parcel is comprised of more than one lot of record.
Right.
So she could split the parcel, okay? Which is essentially the boundary of her taxable land, right? That's created by the property appraiser. So what we do is we give the blessing to the property appraiser to allow the parcel to be split back down to reflect the original subdivision, the original lot of record. But because these have been functionally combined over time, we do not allow the separation back to the original lot of record if it creates a new conformity. So if you combine two lots of record and you reduce your nonconformity with the code, you can't then redivide the two lots of record and then recreate your nonconformity, right? As planners were, and the code is set up, we're always looking to reduce that nonconformity, right? So this is the issue, is if she wants to, she basically needs a historic waiver or a variance outside the historic district to allow this to happen, to keep the structure. If she wanted to split
May
the
I
houses.
ask a question? Because I'm a little confused on how this whole thing works. If I'm looking at it correctly, all three lots used to be one,
Mhm.
owned by the same people. The lot, my house, current house is on a 319, was sold off, and developed on. I purchased the two lots, which now the addition encroaches onto the middle lot. So what I was understood was if I removed the addition, created the 5-foot setback, then I would be able to separate those two and then have that as a separate entity and then absorb the other one into my tax parcel. So basically, we're kind of playing dominoes with the three lots here. But maybe I am not understanding it.
the big issue is that your current house doesn't meet the 5-foot setback.
Mine does.
It doesn't.
It does.
No, not the one you're taking the piece off of.
Oh, no, that one. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, yeah, so
Sorry, the house that you're gonna work on
right, that one.
Right.
does not meet the
Right.
5-foot setback.
So we're just saying for that extra 4 inches, doesn't matter what you do down the road, you do something down the road. If you
Just make the wall real skinny.
if you just decrease that room by 4 inches.
Yeah.
But the problem is a historic edge of her house outside of where the addition is.
Which
Yeah.
is why, yeah.
That's why we suggested the waiver.
I see.
So a historic waiver would basically be, you come before the board, you say, hey, I wanna split my lots. I don't meet this 5-foot setback requirement by 4 inches according to my survey. I would like a historic waiver to this side setback, and they would, make a determination. And that could allow you, even with that non-conforming setback, to split the lots potentially.
Right, because my thought process was if I made it like like the 5 foot, if I wanted to sell off the house, but I wanted to keep the empty lot that's
Right.
in between
Right.
the old home and my current home, the one reason buy it.
Right.
Yeah, so, anyway, so that's why.
So when we had talked to you, we wanted you to add that to this application, so you'd only go to the hearing once, but you didn't do that. And that's okay, okay, so we obviously had some miscommunication. So now, if you want to do that, you need to make another application, because this has been advertised, so we cannot do this now.
Okay,
So you're gonna have to come back, okay, so we can talk with Annie afterwards, okay?
okay, sorry, I didn't.
No, no worries.
fine. We just wanted to give you your option.
Yeah, so anybody have any questions?
I have a question for staff. This is, what staff report says that this is a non-contributing structure. However, the original house before the addition was built in the 30s. By taking the addition off, will that elevate this to a contributing structure?
It would not be something that would like automatically turn it contributing. It is something that, we do periodic surveys, so it is something that future surveyors might take into consideration, that this has, returned more to its historic appearance, and it could kind of regain a contributing status, but it wouldn't be like an automatic thing.
One of the reasons I'm asking is because if in this, taking off the addition and then renovating the rest of the house, obviously there can be windows and roofing and things like that, that are gonna come into play. It's not, so even then, it's not gonna be considered a contributing structure once the addition is removed.
It might be in a new survey, no?
We're gonna pull up the resurvey from 2020 and just check, if they had recommended it to be contributing in the future. Obviously, they weren't aware of any plans to remove the more recent additions. But yeah, it's something that if this all goes through and we have again a survey in the future, it is something that a factor that could play into it becoming a contributing structure.
Right, well, that would be, that would be obvious, but what I'm saying now, when, with Ms. Shipman goes in to start renovating the house and making the improvements to the exterior structure, because you all will have to deal with this at that time, is that going to be considered? Because once the addition is removed, really the original house is there with the lap siding and everything else, which is great, but you have to adhere to modern historic requirements, I guess, on that.
So at this point, any other exterior alterations beyond what is proposed tonight would be treated the same as currently as any other non-contributing structure, where we encourage elevations not visible from the street to comply with our guidelines, but we cannot enforce that. So we would still only have power over the front or the roofing as a whole. For things like roofing and siding, we have the whole in consideration. But for windows and doors, we just consider the front.
Use the new survey, it's up.
Okay, so under the new survey, the recommended eligibility continued to be non-contributing. So that is where they were still feeling it in 2020. I believe this was, October 2020. They were still feeling it, felt non-contributing. It hadn't.
It was probably from that addition and some of the other.
And the final side,
Criteria that you're saying within their decision, I mean, not necessarily clear, but.
We'd have to pull up the individual sheet in the survey, and sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Do you have the power to,
No,
I mean.
we're not magic.
Yeah, but that's. It's more academic.
I'll put some magic sprinkles on the survey and change it.
Only 300, not 2. All right. So I think we discussed this.
I'm good. Lady wants to read a motion, I feel it.
Okay, I move to approve.
Oh, we have a public comment.
I do, I have a public comment.
But she's there.
I live in the Terra Cove neighborhood and have had the opportunity to speak with the current owner. Tina Shipman, and the previous owners, Linda Mahoney and Ryan Papawell, about Ms. Shipman's proposal to partially demolish the southern portion of the building and remove vinyl siding. I am familiar with the inside of the house and walked through the subject proposed demolition space. Some additions benefit a structure, others are problematic. This particular addition falls into the latter category. I fully support Ms. Shipman's proposal to undertake a surgical demolition of the 1994 addition. I also fully support the removal of the vinyl siding on the 1935 house. Vinyl is toxic and should be avoided in all historic homes. Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway.
All right, those are all the public comments.
That would be.
All right, so now we get a motion.
Okay, I move to approve HRPB project number 23-001-00034 with staff recommended conditions for the partial demolition and renovation of the existing structure at 325 North Ocean Breeze based on the competent substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
All right, yeah, motion to a second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Unanimous approval. Be right back. Want to take a 5-minute break while
A bio break, that's what it's called now.
while we're waiting for one of them?
Sure. So we'll adjourn for 5 minutes at recess for 5 minutes. We'll be back at what is it? 7:33.
Sorry.
So we are back live, Mr. Chairman, so the sound is live again.
All right. We move on to business C.
Good evening. For the record, this is Hrpb, Preservation Planner for the City of Lakewood Beach. Item C is Hrpb project number 23-1001-00100032. Consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for an addition to create a duplex at 931 North J Street. Okay. The property is located on the west side of North J Street between 9th Avenue North and 10th Avenue North. It's located in the single-family and two-family residential zoning district. Its future land use is medium-density residential. This existing structure was built circa 1952 in masonry minimal traditional. Front porch was added shortly after construction was completed, and a carport was added circa 1954. Between 1976 and 1997, siding was added to the exterior, giving the appearance of a wood frame minimal traditional. This is the proposed site plan. The application proposes a two-family home and 3 parking spaces off an alley. The existing structure will be attached to the new addition through a breezeway. Here are both side elevations, where you see a red square on the north elevation. Staff recommends a decorative vent to be added to the gable end of the new addition. And the proposed elevation architectural drawings should be modified to depict the decorative vent prior to the issuance of building permit.
We don't have red, you mean those dark.
Sorry,
colors.
here, this
There
one,
it is.
yeah. I'm multitasking, I'm very good at it. All right.
You're doing good.
Thank you.
Is that gonna be on the south elevation too?
No, just for the north elevation, because that's the one that's visible
What
from
you
North
see.
J Street. Yeah.
Yeah, from J.
Yeah.
For 10.
Yeah. So, excuse me. This is the additions floor plan. The street, and here's the streetscape showing the proposed new addition at 931 North J Street, as well as few of the nearby residential structures. So the proposed new structure is consistent with the site data requirement and the city zoning code, except for the required 20-foot back out and the mechanical equipment in the site setback. So here you can see the first one is the mechanical equipment encroaching the site setback, which is highlighted number 1. And the second one is the proposed parking of an alley does not meet the required 20-foot back out, which is number 2 in the red box. And also the applicant will also be required to provide a landscape plan and a tree mitigation plan. The landscape screening of the rear parking area from 10th Avenue North and the property to the south will also be required at permitting.
So if
Yeah.
it's not 20 feet, what is it? This is 18 feet, 19?
Yeah, and they need an addition 20 feet, so for a total of 28, close to 30 feet. Yeah, and they're not meeting that at the moment, so
Okay.
yeah,
But it's enough for cars like in the picture.
yes.
Let's finish the presentation.
All right.
No problem. Thank you. Staff has found that the building is generally compatible with the visual compatibility criteria for new addition within the city's historic district. Greater detail can be found in the staff report, but also staff contends that the height is compatible with other home nearby. The roof shape and stucco finish are appropriate for the architectural style and the neighborhood, and the fenestration pattern is balanced and visually compatible as well. The proposed new duplex house uses materials, forms, and detailing that are consistent with the masonry minimal traditional style, including siding, vent to the gable end, and emphasis on simplicity. And the analysis of staff that proposed duplex structure is generally consistent with the city's historic preservation ordinance and the Lake Worth Beach Historic Preservation Design Guidelines. Staff have drafted conditions of approval of the project seen on the next slides. Here are the conditions of approval. The potential motions are shown on the slide.
Presentation from the applicant.
We do not, and I do not see the applicant here with us.
Yeah.
The situation with the condensing unit takes up most of the Most of the setback on the proposed, proposed structure and the one on the existing structure, pretty much. I don't think you can get by that without going onto the next door property.
Yeah, so the existing one, we had conditioned at this point just because that one's there, that one's existing, it's not being proposed to place there. So we had suggested or conditioned that the new one not, imitate the same issue, as the existing one. We do have regulations in our LDRs that allow for, existing mechanical mechanical for existing structures to be within the side setback if they basically make a case that they cannot move it outside the side setback, but that does not apply to any new construction. So in this case, they are required to put it outside the side setback.
Basically, what happened in this existing structure would never happen now with the way that we review equipment. So it's probably, that mechanical equipment has probably been there for some time in that location. When it is replaced, because they could feasibly relocate that mechanical equipment even to the other side of the structure or reduce it, and a lot of times the mechanical equipment now is getting smaller. But to your point, we try to never ever do this unless there's no other place to put the mechanical equipment. And because the addition is new construction, that will not be allowed to be there.
So, I mean, would you be able to move it around if they replay it?
They could, yeah.
I mean, that's between the neighbor, that's not on the 10th Avenue side of the house, that's on the neighbor's side.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah.
Between the house.
So just to clarify, obviously, I guess it does because you're in here on this application, but that breezeway connection is gonna take this.
So yeah, if it's functionally connected by roofing and footings, it does count in our zoning regulations as a duplex.
And we kind of recommended this suggestion because it preserved the bulk of the front house in its original condition. And then we can to connect the duplex with the breezeway. When they had originally proposed it, it radically changed the massing of the structure. And so, and some of the other discussions we've had with this board, having the two duplex structures connected by a breezeway provided kind of that separation and then almost like that pattern of feeling like two smaller single family structures.
I mean, that is a busy alleyway, that is a busy intersection, most of the time. They probably come in from the 9th Avenue side.
It looks like the breezeway is 11 foot.
6, yes.
So you were saying footings and roof structures are the footings on this structure, are they connected? Is there concrete?
The roof and there is a poured concrete, like basically path that's tied in, so the footer is structurally tied in. They're gonna have to show that in their building plan.
So that's not gonna be like an amenity space necessarily as far as like soft is gonna be impervious.
Yes. Yeah, the breezeway will be.
So-
Now, the space between the two structures, they're probably gonna lose a couple feet because they're gonna have to bring that parking forward. So I think the parking is, they're gonna have to lose the landscaping in the rear of the house and like directly up adjacent. They're gonna have to bring the cars all the way forward to make the back out. And then they're gonna have to bring in that additional one. What was it, 3 feet? 2?
I think we'd said even 1 or 2 feet. Basically what we're talking about that our requirements for parking off alleys, because the alleys are so much more narrow than your average street, backing out, you can't just have the space of the parking space itself, that 9 by 18. You need that additional 20-foot back out. We allow them to count 10 feet of the alley. So instead of needing 18 feet of space on your property, you need 28 feet of space. So what we're talking about is they're going to need to increase the length of the parking spaces that they're showing. So in our staff report and our conditions, we suggested that the breezeway be shortened, I think by like a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet maybe, just to give them that extra breathing room between the parking spaces and the building. So kind of scoot the new building towards North J Street a little bit.
Okay, that changes the dynamic of moving the exit around the breezeway.
There'll still be-
11 foot 6, please.
There'll still be a room there. They could do that there. They could also put it, they could also have that electrical box and put it in the rear of the structure as well. There's outside the side setback.
So,
They could put mini splits in.
Right there. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of different things that they could do.
You want to do it as a condition or a possible or
No, we conditioned
Suggestion.
it. They need to move it.
Okay.
It's
All right,
code.
good.
yeah.
Okay, so that is both of these things, the parking and the condition.
There's no choice. Like, even if you don't condition it, they still gotta do it. It's just the condition is like a heads up, you know?
Like, so.
Mhm.
Zoning's all correct. there's no
Yeah, everything
condition.
else is connected.
Parking, there is no parking at all at 10th Avenue. So he's got what, two on-street parking for the front house?
Yeah.
Because he's got no access to the front house from the back alley.
Yeah.
Except out on 10th Avenue.
And there's like what a big fighting tree in the front, if memory serves me right, or two of them.
Yeah, I believe in our zoning code, they're only allowed to count their on-street parking to their required parking spaces if they are at least 3 unit
Well,
structures.
it has to do
single
with the
family,
district.
two-family.
I
Yeah.
think, are they're single family, two family,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
can't, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot they're single family, two family. They can't use any of that on-street parking.
To count towards their required parking spaces.
They can park there, but they can't count it towards their required parking.
Don't they need 2 off-street paid parking for each unit then?
They need, when it's a duplex, they need 1.5 spaces per unit, so that's why we got the total of 3.
Okay.
So, and then what amount of landscaping is required? There's got some of the landscaping in the parking can. That's correct.
We don't have a landscape plan on this, so we didn't review the landscaping, so. What would you like to see?
I would not like to see parking right up against the building.
Yeah, I mean,
They put one in the front on the south side of the front yard where one of those fighting trees.
Yeah, but what about the permeable surface? Is that gonna start having to pave more or?
there's 2 issues here, if I may, because there's the tree mitigation issue. They're already taking a tree out. So they're going to, what they're showing in their landscaping is very conceptual, isn't gonna meet our code, 1. 2, it's not gonna account for the fact that they have to mitigate the tree that they're removing. So if they were to provide another space on the front, they would also have to mitigate a second tree. So maybe, I mean,
Where? There's not a lot of land.
well,
Wow.
this is probably why they ended up kind of, with their thought.
So up in that area of the city, do they traditionally have driveways or is it still an on-street parking?
That's a parking block.
Is a parking?
Yeah, it's mostly a parking lot. I mean, you got that 4-unit caddy corner, they got the spots right on J Street. But a lot of it's the on street, those blocks right there.
They're full.
I just don't. I'm sort of a proponent of if you have a neighborhood where there aren't a lot of driveways, you don't want to start adding driveways and from that sort of well,
So it's fancy.
yeah,
Edges on that.
Well, they do.
not against driveways, it's just that that's not the character of the neighborhood. I don't want to start adding to that.
That's a difficult spot for a driveway too,
Oh, yeah.
because it is on a street. The alley is a little quieter for backing out and things. Because it's on 10th Avenue North, there's a lot of traffic there.
I still don't like the idea that there is, one of those parking spaces in order to get to the front house. If that is, in fact, used for, you gotta go out,
Well, I doubt that the front house would use the back spaces. They'll probably just use the street parking. I think those, right. I mean, they could, but yeah, it is a bit far of a walk.
Ready for a motion? Chairman?
All right.
I move to approve HRPB project number 23-001-00032 with staff recommendation conditions of certificate of appropriateness for an addition for the property located at 931 North J Street, based upon the competent substantial evidence in the staff report pursuant to the city of Lakewood land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
And just note that, you know, we do review the zoning as much, with as much of the information as we have, because we want the massing and the scale and the other things to be right when it comes to you. But if, when they submit for permit and they have their construction drawings and they have some additional details, if we notice something in that review, you are not approving the site plan here. You are approving the architecture and the massing and the compatibility of the architecture. This is a CRA for a support appropriateness of the new construction, but it's not a zoning approval. That's not the scope of the COA itself. So when it comes to permit, then we'll look at that, and it would just duplexes don't require a site plan. They just go straight to building permit. And so we would do a full and complete zoning review because we'd have the full application at that time. So we do landscaping, we do everything else, but we try to catch as much as we can before it comes to you, because we don't want to have to kick it back to you if something comes up in zoning review that then changes the look of the structure.
So you're saying for this one, it still has to go through zoning review after us, right?
Yeah, they'll have a full packet.
Right, but at least you've alleviated any potential.
We try to get ourselves at
Right.
least 99.9% there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if we catch anything on the back end, because you know, sometimes things shift a little with construction drawings and other things.
I'll second the motion.
So that means we, in that, what you're saying is we not conditional upon the foundation planting or something on the backside of that.
So for compatibility, you can say for historic compatibility, these would have traditionally had foundation plantings, and so that you would want them to have foundation plantings.
Yeah.
So
I just think it's awful to have parking right up against the building. I think they're gonna find it that way too when they get it in there.
yeah, so just say that it doesn't, you know, it would not been a the context would not been historically accurate, and that you believe that there should be some space and area with some landscaping between the parking.
All right, so
There's not gonna be a lot.
as chairman, can I make a friendly amendment, or can I ask him to make a friendly amendment?
I believe you can, right?
All right, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the motion to add a condition to have 5 feet. Foundation planting on the west side.
Could it just be as much as feasible, because 5 feet, it's not gonna, otherwise you're basically pushing the buildings together. Or it's as close, yeah.
Okay, but yeah, 5 feet's not a lot of space in one.
I know.
Add that to my motion.
All right, wait a second.
Seconder, please.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. You'll have unanimous approval. Okay, so, one thing that-
All right, so this is HRPB project number 23-001,039. Consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for window replacements at the property located at 211 Columbia Drive. This is a contributing resource in the College Park local historic district. That is a differentiation I wanted to note here. So in our College Park district, there are different boundaries for the national and the local districts. The national district is a smaller section of our larger local district. So this is only contributing in the local portion. It's not included at all in the national portion. So we'll go next. So this is our.
I'll go here, but just a quick question.
Sure.
Is that just be for boundaries? Is it the boundary of the national district? Or-
Yeah, the boundary of the national district was just drawn smaller to what I understand more of a core area.
Okay. Sorry.
So this is our location map. So we are on Columbia. We are near North Federal Highway. We'll go next slide. So this is our primary structure. Here you can see just kind of the front and a couple side elevations that the property owner provided. Like I said, this is a contributing structure. We'll go next slide for some quick project background. So staff received a permit application for 13 window replacements on the main structure in 2020. Shortly thereafter, staff reviewed and disapproved that application. And then jumping forward a couple years in 2022, code compliance filed violations on the property, including window replacement without an approved building permit. So the property owner contacted historic preservation and building department staff in January and February of this year, and staff discussed how to resubmit that window permit. That happened in February. Staff disapproved the permit in late February because the information submitted did note that the glazing of the windows has a gray tint, which is not allowed in our guidelines. Staff talked to the property owner, let them know they could either replace the glazing with clear glass that would keep it at an administrative level, or they could take it to all of you to request approval of the windows as is. The property owner did express that they had difficulty finding a contractor to replace the glass, the existing glass with clear glass, as the previous contractor had worked without permits and other contractors weren't comfortable touching that, basically. The property owner has notified staff that they have attempted to contact their previous contractor to resolve the unpermitted work. Those attempts have not been successful. So this is our, on the left, we've got original 1948 drawings. They're actually mirrored to the way that the home was built, which is why they look a little funky compared. And these are the front elevation photos from 2020. So you can see on here, the original house had aluminum double hung windows on most of it, which were replaced with jalousie windows at some point. We were not able to find a definitive answer on when those were replaced prior to 2020. There was also a rear Florida room that was built with jalousie windows, I believe in the 50s. We'll go next. So these are the current windows. We have single hung windows on most of the structure, as well as some horizontal rollers on that back Florida room. And on the right is the documentation that was submitted, noting that the glass has a gray tint. So in our design guidelines, they specifically say glass with tints shall not be used, and it has to be clear glass that meets our VLT requirements, which is why this got immediately kicked to you all. Staff does not have authority to approve tinted glass. We'll go next slide. So while the window styles themselves are appropriate for the structure based on the original drawings, you know, replacement with a single hung window when the originals looked very similar is appropriate, and replacement of the jalousie windows in the Florida room with full light horizontal sliders is also appropriate in our design guidelines. The tints are not something that staff can approve. If you all move to approve the replacement windows, we have drafted conditions of approval that are on this slide right here.
So we still have unpermitted windows that were put in without a permit.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking us to approve something that's not been permitted.
So your approval of this would allow them to move forward with the building permit and the required inspections that are associated with the building permit. Right now, they have resubmitted their permit, but can't get through historic review because of the tints.
So the only thing we're really looking at is, yeah.
Right, and just to be clear, you know,
I get it.
we you know, based on our design guidelines, and
Well, I have.
we're not recommending approval. Yeah.
Isn't staff allowed to approve tint up to 60% now?
This is a gray tint. We're allowed to approve low E.
Well, this is
They're actually tinted gray. It's not a low E.
With a film or?
no.
The glass itself is
The glass
tinted.
itself is tinted.
Correct.
And
And
it
they
was
were-
done without a permit.
When they did apply for a permit, they were rejected,
And then they did it anyway.
and then they did it anyway.
Without a permit.
without a
Right.
permit.
And there is a, I guess, the possibility that when it's inspected, it won't pass inspection for the installation.
We have no idea, honestly, we can't even speak to that, but who knows how they were installed.
I mean, this is just one of my pet
Yeah.
peeves about unpermitted work.
It could be more than just the glazing, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes with what our inspectors see on jobs is that they see the windows are not attached to the structural elements.
Yeah.
So people pay for impact windows. And then the impact window is not actually attached to the main structural components of the house.
Right.
So basically what happens when that's the case, if they're not installed correctly, the entire window blows in. So the glass might be okay, but you have a hole in your wall because the window wasn't attached to your building. You
Exactly.
know?
So,
So,
and that's why I have very little patience for unpermitted work, because it's not just the tin or whatever comes in for us is unpermitted, is because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes in with it too, as far as safety and what it's installed properly and the whole bit. So I am personally, I have very little patience for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, when you get this conversation about like tonight, we have the building that's demolishing, it's a little decision we make. Yeah, that's what we need to do to prevent that. So I totally agree.
I mean, I could see like last month when we had the gentleman come in and really wanted that window in the front. But you actually go ahead and when you're told, no, and then you install without a permit, now 3 years
So
later.
if this is denied, what happens then to the owner of the windows? What then? Then they can't move forward to inspection?
They basically, I think, would end up having to
What do they
hire
do?
somebody to take those windows out, put in code approved
Well,
windows.
they'll have to replace the windows anyway, right?
It's gonna be cheaper than replacing the glass.
So they, if denied, they would have to hire a contractor and replace the windows properly.
yeah, I mean, they really should be, the applicant should probably contact an attorney and this really becomes a civil matter.
Sidebar, because I know we're discussing this already, but there isn't a presentation button.
No, the property owner is out of state due to family emergency issues, and I don't see them on Zoom. They were given a link if they were able to attend. But I don't see them, so yeah, all we have from the property owner then is
why would it be
the
a-
justification statement they submitted.
Why would it be a legal issue that they should consult with an attorney? Because of,
Because they hired a contractor who installed windows without a permit. So if the contractor advised them, we believe the contractor advised them.
The property owner had told us that, the contractor said they had a permit, when they came to do the windows. So
We don't
that's
know,
why-
we don't know if that's true, if it's not, if there's documentation of that. I mean, this is why it really becomes a civil issue because
between them and their contract.
So let's make that happen.
Well, it's a pretty.
Well, we don't make that happen. You gotta sue somebody, you know?
Certainly help you.
But I would be cautious too, in the fact that no other licensed contractor wants to touch it. So,
No.
And
yeah, but maybe to redo it, they would.
well, yes, I know.
Oh, for sure, they would, anybody would touch it to put all new windows in.
But they don't want to
They don't
retrofit them.
touch it to just replace the glass.
No,
Right.
But they'll do it if they're starting over and
Exactly.
replace everything. properly.
yeah,
And can we just draw everybody's attention to the actual contract or proposal from the window contractor? And it says right there excludes permits and engineering. Right there, on the contract that they apparently agreed to.
Oh, wow. It excludes.
Excuse me, did I say include?
Exclude.
It does exclude, yes. Permits and engineering.
So,
That may be indicating that they exclude the permit costs. I'm
Could be the cost.
not sure, but it does, it does say that.
that's the code.
so,
Because if they'd gone for permits and engineering, they would have found out they wouldn't be able to fund it then.
Well, they did apply for
Yes,
permits,
it's
but
really
it's
only-
they
denied.
did apply for it.
Yeah.
I meant they were denied. And
Yeah.
then did they hire this contractor after?
No, the contractor, this contractor Schaefer submitted the permits
Okay.
and
So
received
that's
the
probably
denial.
the personal cost of it excludes.
So Schaefer don't necessarily install it.
No, Schaefer was
Does he
the,
install it?
yes.
When
So
would,
licensed installer ahead of It's all that weren't permitted.
Yes,
So a permit was submitted and denied, and then he went and did it anyway.
yes.
Yeah.
I go, yeah.
Anyway,
On to do this motion.
we have a motion.
Maybe
Yeah.
they really did think they were, because, yeah,
They might very well,
yeah.
legitimately.
We have a motion.
Go ahead. You want to do it? I'll do it. I don't care.
I think, yeah, Jamie should.
Jamie, do it. I moved to deny HRPV, case number 23-001-039 or COA for window replacements on the property at 211 Columbia Drive. Because the applicant has not established substantial evidence that the application complies with city of Port Pete's land development regulations and its sport preservation requirements.
Can I amend yours and not just make it 32, I think 32, right?
There's one.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong one, you're right.
Right.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Denied unanimously.
We don't do that. We don't. Good night, Wes.
Good night, Wes.
All right. So that takes us to the end of the business. Do you have any planning issues?
No, but we've got a bunch of departmental reports and we don't appear to have, do we have any public comment?
No. That was
So we can just head straight into the departmental reports if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Third report.
All right, department notice, it's our departmental report is a notice of demolition of for the main structure and garage at 206 North Federal Highway. The property is located on the east side of North Federal Highway between Second Avenue North and Third Avenue North. The property is located in the mixed-use East zoning district and has a future land use of designation of mixed use east. This is the existing structure in the garage. This is a close-up photo of the existing structure showing damages. This is the picture of the existing garage, and it was built between 1925 and 1935. After visiting site on January 31st and February 2nd, the city's building official declared the garage unsafe due to cracks, structural foundations, and significant water damage. Per the land development regulation and the COA approval matrix, demolition of condemned non-contributing structures requires board notice. And that's it. That concludes the presentation. Any comments?
There's nothing we can see in the building.
Please. I drive by that area every day. I have to look at that.
So I know the building owner is looking for a tenant. This is Ann Fairfax and her husband. And they're going to in the main building, and then we're not sure what they're gonna do with that part, but once they have procured a tenant, they're gonna come back in with a site plan and hopefully to restore the old telemarketing building in a little bit more true way. Because it had some of those weird awnings on it that were not really consistent with the original architectural style of the building on the corner.
Are
So
there more windows in the original architecture? On that building?
On the building adjacent to it, there were storefront windows on the front. The side windows were always that small.
Okay.
So, yeah, and just on a side note, we've asked the applicant on that other property to restore the storefront when they come back in. We'd like to see that that building on the corner really restored. So this one you can comment on if you would like. That is within your purview.
This, well, no, it's, I don't have any comments, it needs to come down.
Okay.
It looks like it was, demolition through the neglect almost, You see the roof is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It has an interesting history in Lake Worth. We're not sure why it wasn't designated contributing. It's kind of a cool structure. And it was a little grocery store and it had some interesting uses,
So
right?
the adjacent property was a grocery store.
Oh.
This one was a residence, and then in the 50s, they built on that front addition, the front addition to serve as a tailor shop. So the tailor lived in the back, they worked in the front for like 30 years. So yeah, but unfortunately, yeah, it's not contributing and in really
So-
poor condition.
We used
It
to
is.
take out those fuses and put a penny in there, so they keep going.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
So
we're good.
we have a couple more department reports. First of all, we will see you all next week. Same time, same place. We're voting on the 2023.
Same place.
Here. Yes.
Yes, we're not going, oh, the award ceremony.
Yeah, not the ceremony, just the voting.
Okay, just.
We're gonna vote so that we have things to do at the ceremony on our 2023 awards. I think we have 6 eligible nominations.
Is that like an official?
We need
hearing
more, right?
or something?
It would be great if there were a couple more, but if there's gonna be more, it needs to be like now. So you need to get on it.
Is that the only thing on the agenda or is there?
Yes, that's the only thing on the
Are
agenda.
there structures that staff would like to see? I mean, obviously, did anybody reach out to the people?
Yep, we reached out to 7 or 8 people, and 3 of the 6 that submitted were from us reaching out. But yeah, we had reached out and gotten some responses, some non-responses.
If you have any idea, or you want to talk to staff after the meeting, then we'll be happy to do that and see if there's, we can accept a last minute submittal, but we've got to get it, because we've got to get the packet out for that prior to the meeting, but we could hold the packet.
When was the deadline?
The 7th.
And there are a couple more that maybe could definitely be in there.
Yeah, I mean,
We're only picking one.
Well,
Up to you. You can pick however many you'd like.
Architecture.
well, we have how many categories?
We have 3 categories. We only had 2 out of 3 categories have eligible submissions. So we had eligible submissions for our new construction and addition category, as well as our pivotal preservation / other category. We did not have any rehabilitation submissions this year so far.
So that'd be great if you know of a rehab. And it has to be complete in the last 5 years.
the one that comes to my mind is one across from Brian Clark, the 60 minute or something like this, in the apartment building. It'll be the 400 block.
Just send us an email with the address and we can add it.
Go at it.
Mhm.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
So, and we'll make sure it has, if it didn't get an award already, so. Just on an additional note, you are invited. The mobility plan outreach will be conducted this Saturday. It's going to be at what we call the Jewel Box Building in front of the Bohemian. It's got basically a temporary CO on that building, so it's an unfinished space. So it has bathrooms and all that, but it's cool to see a space in that initial ready for basically a white box. And the public workshop, and there'll be activities, lunch will be provided. If you can make it, please RSVP. It's on the city's webpage, where you would RSVP. There's a portal form, so we can make sure that we have lunch for you. So it's very exciting, and you guys can get some flyers before you leave. And if anybody out there is actually listening to us at this point, if there's anybody left, you are also invited, and the information is on the city's webpage of where to attend. And again, it's the little small 2-story building right in front of the Bohemian. There's parking in the parking garage, there's parking on the street, there's parking at Hatch, there's parking all around. And because it is a mobility thing. If you'd like to try an alternate form of transportation to get to the mobility plan outreach, that would also be cool.
Yeah, I'll ride my bike. Yeah. And we're on YouTube, so remember to hit the like button or the camera is. And follow us on YouTube.
Is that it for department reports?
That's it.
All right, I actually have a question. Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you can speak to it, but do we have a status on the Gulf Stream?
We have been in communication with them. As far as we know, they are preparing their construction documents and working out some other issues related to financing and some other things. So as far as we know, they're still coming in. They're still in communication. We are waiting for their application with bated breath. And we're very hopeful. We have done everything we can as a city to expedite that application. So we are but they have to have a building permit to build it. So we need those construction plans. So.
Any board member comments? That looks like it. All right, adjourn.